The International Association for Near-Death Studies presents NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio, brought to you on behalf of IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm your host, Lee Witting. Today's guest, Susan Walter, is an intuitive visionary artist. After near-death experiences at the age of 4 and 6, Susan was given the ability to see into the angelic realms, allowing her to see the angels in their pure light form. At first, she was introduced to her own 3 angels, but in 1997, she suddenly gained the ability to see others' angels as well. She uses this ability to draw angel portraits and relay messages and insights from them to the people under their care. Susan is also the artist-author of the Solfeggio Mandala Activation Guides and Meditation Decks, designed to assist us to realign with our original blueprint. She also creates healing art with a conscious heart from her visions during meditation. This is her way of connecting with the divine and helping others to do the same. You can find her website at susanwalterart.com. Susan, welcome to NDE Radio.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here today.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. And it's a very interesting story that you have. Susan, you were only 4 and 6 growing up on a farm in Iowa when you had your NDEs. What caused them and what did you see?
The cause was I had ruptured hernias and obviously then underwent life-saving surgeries. The experience themselves, the first thing I went into this, just be absolutely beautiful garden with massive trees and wildflowers and just all kinds of little animals that seemed to be just, running around. And under one of the trees were 3 of my own personal angels. The first thing that happened was one of them kind of like knelt down in front of me because they're just massive. My dad's 6 foot tall, and they just seem to be like almost double that. Just massive. So one of them knelt down to me, and the communication was telepathic. And I know I've read a few other near-death experiences, only 1 or 2 really, but everybody seems to talk about a life review, but because I was so young, I did not experience that. They literally just asked me if I wanted to see the world through the animal's eyes, and I just kind of went from animal to animal after that.
Oh, wow. What a great invitation. Well, tell us, what does the world look like through different animals' eyes? Blades of grass, or a field of grass can end up being a forest, depending on what animal you're experiencing. And the freedom of it was just amazing. What animals were you in?
I'm sure I don't recall absolutely every detail. I remember, things like, mice, rabbit, probably something that felt like a turtle. They started with animals that I was familiar with growing up on the farm.
Did you get any sea life out of that? Were you in a dolphin?
In the second one, I did. I don't. If I did on the first one, I don't recall it, but I do recall that in the second one, where I did go in, swimming in the sea and, starting with small animals, going to larger and larger, and ending in what I believe was a blue whale. And I was swimming in the ocean, and then all of a sudden I was swimming in space. Wow. And from there, I was, it's almost like I was still in the body of the whale and experienced from their viewpoint, but it's like I watched myself and 2 other beings, kind of at that moment of creation when the souls are created. And I saw myself and 2 others being kind of, that we were on our way to experience the angelic realms. and we were pulled aside and asked to experience more 3D life in what they actually use the word planet creator. To be honest, I don't fully understand what that means, but they showed me what the world would be like if I did, and what the world would be like if I did not. The other two beings did go on to the angelic realms. I obviously did not.
Mm. So if you did, in fact, participate in the creation, is that what you mean?
I believe so, but to be honest, I'm not fully sure because I don't recall that piece of what I was shown during that. Because I was looking at it from the outside at that moment.
And when you were in the animal, say you were in a mouse, and the blades of grass looked probably like trees themselves, were you experiencing the mouse's brain patterns, or were you observing that as well from the outside?
I think I was observing that from the outside.
Mm-hmm. So you could see both through the mouse eyes and at the same time understand it through your own intellect.
Yes, though the intellect of a child.
Yes, that's right. And you had told me you had a special interest in animals when you were growing up.
Growing up, it's like I was notorious for if there was a nest of rabbits or mice or snakes or birds, whatever, I was notorious for finding those and just very gently playing with them and allow them to, crawl all over my hands and, arms and stuff. And then would just very gently put them back where I found them.
Wow. I wonder if you have any indication that you might have been reincarnated from an animal?
To be honest, I never thought about that. It's very possible. I think souls choose to experience many different types of lives.
Mm. And the angels apparently knew this. This was a fascination of yours for them to even offer to give you this experience.
Yeah, it's almost like they were just trying to occupy me, but yet give me and put me in a place where I felt very safe and very comfortable.
Did they tell you were going to go back to your body, or did it just happen?
It just happened when, at some point after the surgery was complete and it was time for my body to wake back up. I don't recall waking up after the first one, but the second one I do. I remember one of my grandmothers being in the room at the time, and at first she didn't notice that I was awake, and I looked over and she was actually reading a National Geographic. And it was the one with that actually had the Giza Plateau on the front. And, I don't recall ever seeing a picture of that before, but she noticed I was awake when I asked, where's the rest of them? And then, of course, she asked, the rest of what?
Did you mean the pyramids?
Yes, I did. And, now they have actually found what they believe be foundations for other pyramids on the plateau. But that's just been discovered here in the last few years.
Well, the Sphinx was practically buried in sand when it was first discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's probably tons of stuff that they're going to dig down and find.
Eventually, yes, they will.
That's I was in the Great Pyramid several years ago. It's quite an experience. Why do you suppose we need 3 angels?
Yeah, they haven't specifically told me, but I know that they do like to do things in 3s. And there are some people that have more than 3, but everybody has a minimum of 3 from what I have seen.
Mm. And it's their sole duty to keep an eye on us?
To keep an eye on us and to help us learn all the different things and experience all the different things that we wanted to experience in this lifetime. We actually make a plan with them ahead of time.
So they help us to plan out our, like you say, your original blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Now, you said they're tall, maybe 12, 15 feet tall.
12, 15, sometimes even 18. I think that is the space that they feel the most comfortable in. But when I'm in a space, drawing, say for example, somebody's angel portrait, and I live in an apartment with like a 10-foot ceiling. They are going to proportion themselves into the space.
So they can size their
their being's made of light. They're made out of pure light, and when they're in their more natural state.
But there was the beautiful garden you were in had gigantic trees in it as well, didn't it? You said they were like redwoods.
Mm-hmm. And they were just massive. And even the angels weren't able to reach the branches. The trees were so big.
Wow. And I find it also, just to go back for a second, interesting that you had noticed all these animals, because almost everyone that gets that far in a near-death experience experiences a beautiful garden, and they talk about radiant flowers and perhaps a brook or a river, but they hardly ever mention animals unless they spot one of their own deceased pets, which occurs. But this was unique because you saw lots of animals running around.
I grew up on a farm, and there were lots of animals around. My father was, raised hogs. My uncle just up the street raised cattle. We had horses. There was, in my world, there were just animals everywhere.
Wow. Now, when you woke up and there was your grandmother reading the National Geographic, did you tell her what you'd seen?
At that time, no, I did not. It took time for me to even, I think, develop the words to try and share my experience, but it was still, to try and convey that to an adult and to make them understand is extremely difficult for a child.
Mm. Well, I think you mentioned in an earlier conversation with me that your stepfather had almost an angry response, said, "Stop your stories and your lies."
Yeah, after a while he did. I think I was probably about 7 when he did that, when he said that at a dinner table one evening.
I was down.
I was trying to say, because the only way I could convey what I had experienced was to say, when I was a snake, when I was a rabbit, and they didn't, understand what I was trying to convey, and I didn't have the words to convey it either.
Mm. Wow. Did that stop you from telling other people about what you'd experienced?
I did. I just quit talking about it for years. I was probably well into my 30s before I even, spoke about it to anyone else.
Wow, what a loss. I mean, it would have been fascinating to other children, for instance, if you'd been able to tell them about what it's like to be a snake or a rabbit. Of course, they might not have believed you either. That's always the risk an NDEer has in trying to tell their story to
yes,
people.
Yes, it is.
The other thing you said about that experience was that you felt when you were in the garden, you felt accepted for exactly who I am, without expectations and with pure love. Was that a huge contrast to life here at that time?
Like any parent, many parents, we want the best for our kids, so we sometimes unintentionally put expectations on them.
That feeling of pure love, did you were you able to think back on that? I mean, in moments of insecurity, did you
I have been at different times, yeah.
Wow. And that probably kept you online with your angels as well, because it would be something to call on them for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know as I lived on the farm until I was 14, and one of my safe places to go when I was done with my daily chores was to take a book and a radio and go and sit by the creek. And I think that was because that was the closest I could get to getting back to that feeling and back to that place.
Now, you said you stayed in touch with your angels after this.
Yes, I was able to see them all the time.
did they come to you, or did you ask to see them, or how did that communication take place?
They were just there. They never left my side.
Like your invisible friend when you're a child.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
three invisible friends.
They are just they are very, transparent, but
No, I think
they are, for me, they were constantly present.
No, I think I asked you if they had names, and you told me that angel names take 15 minutes to pronounce.
Yeah,
Tell me about
15 to 20 minutes to pronounce their full name. So like when I do an angel portrait for someone, they spell for me a piece of that. The pronunciation then is totally up to you. There's no right or wrong. If you want to abbreviate it further, that's okay too. And I never ask that they pronounce it for me, because I don't need that. But there is some sort of connection that does seem to take place. Magic is the closest word I can think of that describes that. When they pronounce it for the first time.
And your angels, did they have wings or not?
They have what we would think of as wings. They do have an energetic pattern that seems to come out of the spine. That each one seems to be a little bit different. They're almost like fingerprints. And as many portraits as I've done over the last 20 some years, I have seen some similarities, but never even exactly alike. Even when I've done portraits for identical twins, it's like the colors were reversed from each other.
Mm-hmm. So
there's always something different.
Is there some sort of equivalent to a genetic connection? There's a genetic connection between, especially identical twins. Do you feel like there's a genetic connection between you and your angels?
I wouldn't put it that way, because from my understanding, angels, it is extremely rare that they have ever taken physical form.
There's some biblical references to angels.
Yes, there are. Like Elijah, for example, is an angel that took physical form, from my understanding.
Yes. Let me ask you, and I know I asked you this once before, but for our audience's sake, I interviewed a woman who also had an angel companion almost constantly for quite a long time in her life, but she called him an alien. What do you see as a difference between? Is it just a difference in words, or what?
Yeah,
how would you describe that?
I think it is really just a difference in words, because they're multidimensional beings, and within, what we as humans refer to as aliens, they would fall under that category. But they exist in a slightly different frequency than ours.
Well, tell me about your understanding. I know you're into the whole frequency thing because of the mandalas and the music scale. Is it a 6-note scale, the solfeggio vibration?
My understanding, there are 9 sets of 9 frequencies, all based on that Pythagorean math.
Okay. But this is also the basis for medieval Gregorian chant music? Yes.
The church claims to have lost the frequencies at some point in the 1600s. My understanding and my belief is that was an intentional, that they set those frequencies aside because they could not control the experiences that people were having by listening to those frequencies.
Wow. And the angels, are they expressed in these same frequencies when you see them as light?
The names that they have, their true names, are spoken, or actually, I think toned would be a more proper word. It is the solfeggio frequencies that they use to communicate with each other.
And And have you heard them communicate with each other?
Yes, I have.
Is
I'm
it
still
musical?
waiting for somebody to help me interpret that.
Does it sound like tones or music, or how would you
Yeah,
describe
it's
it?
very similar to toning or chanting.
Ah, and it's audible as opposed to mental, or is it something you hear
It is more
with your
mental.
mind? With your mind.
It is more mental.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Perhaps you could talk a little about the mandalas that you've been doing as art and what they represent vibrationally.
Yeah, when I create those mandalas, I do listen to that specific frequency as I'm creating it. And then the information about what it can help you, because each tone can help you do different things and help assist you. So a lot of that information is channeled with the exception of the earthly frequencies because they were already very well known and have been studied quite a bit. It is the other 8 sets that are really not very well known or studied very much. But once I understood and in the research that I did that there were actually 9 sets, it was just outside of my nature to not complete that.
It would be an awesome undertaking, I would think.
Yeah, it was an 8-year project because each mandala took me, anywhere from 30 to 45 hours to complete. From setting and doing the initial line drawing to, and then to coloring it and channeling the information that goes with that.
Now, you had said, I think that you were able to not see all the angels as 15-foot tall creatures, but you said you were able to tune down the image that you were getting and you compared it to a constantly moving image similar to glitter in a snow globe.
Just because doing simple things like going to the grocery store on a daily basis, and seeing everybody's angels, all the time in their full form was, it was kind of overwhelming to see that all the time. So my way of kind of turning the volume down, so to speak, was, having them help me and teach me how to see them just as like, different size spheres of color that's, constantly moving. And that is fairly similar to, a snow globe.
Hmm. When you're out in a crowd and you're aware of say you're in the mall, if there's such a thing as a mall where, well, of course you're not living on an Iowa farm anymore.
Right.
But do you see any communication or even a recognition between the angels and different people?
Sometimes I do, not always, but I have seen that, yes.
So if an angel for Joe sees a friend angel who's with Jack, they might greet each other or
sometimes
smile
they do.
or radiate in some way.
Yes.
I wonder there are supposedly 7 to 8 billion people in the world, so you're talking about 24 billion angels if everyone has 3 angels.
Oh, but there's way more than that.
And their functions are so focused on, 3 angels per person. It seems.
Mm-hmm.
It seems
and
like
many of us have more than that. It's like the more work you have to do, the more things you're here to experience. The more that you could potentially have with you.
Why don't they maybe they do help us more actively than we perceive it. But it seems like, there are an awful lot of people, for instance, who wind up killing themselves out of loneliness and despair. Where are the angels to help them when they need it the most?
Yeah, because we have ignored them for so long, they sometimes, will choose just to step back. So they, if you want to communicate and want your angels to talk to you, the first thing you should do is talk to them. And they're friends, so talk to them like they're friends. I am at one point I was literally had a journal that all I wrote in there was, when I was talking to my angels. And sometimes it was, ranting after a tough day at work, or, it wasn't always, all love and light, it was, I talked to him about anything and everything. Went through a difficult divorce. I vented and released and let go, but they helped me do that, and they helped me let go, and to help me learn how to forgive.
Of course, you're much more aware of them because you can see their presence. But for someone who can't see them or hasn't learned how to see them, it might seem to them a little crazy to be talking out loud or thinking intensely to an angel that you're not even sure is there. Well,
they're always there.
How do you suggest? Now, you help people who come to you and want a drawing of their angel, or to also communicate. How do you do that?
A lot of times they'll show me like snapshots of pictures. Even if there's, say, for example, a book that they would like, if they feel that person would be helped by, they'll show me a flash of, the cover of that book. So that's a way they communicate with me to help, relay messages as best I can. And they're like people. Some angels are more talkative than others.
That's very interesting. Do you have many people come to you and say they would like to have you draw an angel for them?
Yes, I do. On a fairly regular basis. And I do have it set up on my website so people can literally just go ahead, even set up a time and an appointment, because I'm able to do it through Zoom. The most important thing, as long as I can see a person's eyes. Before we had things like Zoom, I have learned to do it from photograph as well. But I'm just not as called to do that as often now as I was at one time. Now that we have, Zoom is so much easier. It's so convenient. As well as, and if Zoom doesn't work for somebody, I can use Skype or whatever technology works best for both of us.
Now, Susan, you have 4 children. Are
Yes.
you familiar with their angels?
I have seen them, yes. I'm still, my daughter has asked me to draw hers, but my 3 sons, I'm still waiting for them.
Do they accept this gift of yours, or are they dubious?
To be honest, it's something we just don't talk about a lot.
Gee, I would be, if I were your son, I'd be after you all the time to talk about it. But of course, that's my own particular interest in the other side.
Yeah, one of my sons is still a farmer today on a farm. He's 4th generation farmer on a farm on his dad's side.
Wow. In Iowa?
Yes. 2 of my sons live in Iowa, and then son and daughter live here in Kansas City.
And grandchildren?
I have 4. The older 2 boys, are married and have. I have 4 grandchildren at this point.
Have you ever talked to the children about
briefly?
Say being an animal, what it's like to be a rabbit.
Now that I have not talked to him about. I've talked to him a little bit about, mentioned that Grandma sees things.
Well, that's great. That's great. Susan, I'm unfortunately, we seem to be out of time once again. The time goes so quickly.
Yes, it does.
On this show especially. Please tell the listeners how they can find your website in case they'd be interested in having an angel drawing or to see your mandalas, which are quite beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. My website is susanwalterart.com, and you can find links there to some of my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and with the crazy things going on in the world right now, the censorship, I am looking at some other platforms, and that'll all be on Facebook, posted on my website as well.
Very good. Well, Susan, thank you so much for sharing your story of your experiences and your visions and your artistic talent and the communications, all of the things we were talking about just now.
It was an honor.
Thank you so much. It was great to have you. If listeners would like to hear this show again or any of our nearly 400 past shows, just go to our NDE Radio site and hit the past shows button. And for more about IANDS, go to their website at iands.org. And listen again next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern, for more NDE Radio. This is Lee Witting saying thanks for listening.